Hey everyone, this is Hua Li, and you're listening to the Cabbages Hip Hop Podcast.
Other than the fact that they're like well-dressed people when we meet them, right away you're like, oh, these people, they dress well. They're like with it fashion-wise, or whatever. The first time we're really encountering the richness, the full richness of these Asians is the airplane ride.
No.
Right?
It's before that. No, it's before that.
It's before that because the airplane ride is fucking, they're in a hotel room.
Yeah.
Inside of the airplane. And she's still like, he's not that rich. He's probably not that rich.
You've never flown that way before?
Yeah, no, I never got a private room on an airplane. No,
yeah,
I
me
never
neither.
got one. No.
Me neither. But no, the first time that we really see that these Asians, these particular Asians are crazy
these
rich.
Specific Asians are rich beyond
crazy
our wildest dreams.
Crazy rich.
Right.
Is in the flashback scene that opens the film. When because of bad service at a hotel, racist service at a hotel, I should say, they end up buying the hotel in a matter of minutes. Through like a couple of phone calls. Suddenly now their family owns the hotel.
Right.
That's crazy rich.
So
I think that's the first scene. But
that's
then you're
the
right,
first, but we don't like if we're operating that. The heroine of the film, Rachel.
Yep.
If we're operating with Rachel and Rachel's knowledge, like we know that, but Rachel doesn't know that. So her first encounter is this plane. And the plane ushers in an era of the film that lasts the rest of the film, essentially. That is just like, look how fucking rich these people are.
Yeah.
I mean, every reveal is like, damn. That is rich. All the way to the end where like the last scene is just fireworks shooting off the top of what I can only really describe as a modern castle.
The name of this movie is accurate.
It's fully accurate.
Sometimes movies are euphemistic, and we're here to tell the Cabbages listeners, Crazy Rich Asians is about Asians who are crazy rich.
These people are crazy rich.
No euphemism.
It's an insane amount. They're so rich that they bring in an entire family who are definitely rich.
Oh yeah.
To show just how like designated amount of rich these people are. Like these people who are rich, no, they're not rich.
They're not crazy.
These people are fucking rich. They're crazy rich.
Yeah.
It's an immaculate amount of times.
Yes.
It's like 600 different times. You're like,
it's the whole movie.
Did you know they were rich?
Film.
Yeah, they're rich. I forgot about that part.
It's nearly the entire film. So let's talk about with our guest. We've got a great guest today.
Yep.
A fun time. I'm sure we're going to get deep into this as way we always do. But just fair warning, we like this movie. It's not a bad movie. A lot of people who watch this movie liked it. It's like a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like
pretty good.
This is new terrain for us. Bear with us, guys. We'll be right back. I am thrilled to introduce our guest for today's show. Joining us now is Hua Li, based in Montreal. The Chinese-Canadian rapper / R&B singer is responsible for the spectacular, immersive 2019 album Dynasty, available via Bandcamp and wherever music is streamed or sold. Hello and welcome to the show.
Hello.
I'm
so happy to be talking about this film that I avoided watching for so many years.
You avoided watching this film. I was going to ask you if you'd seen it before. This is what I want
to know. Yes, let's turn up.
Okay, so you were resistant to the idea of Crazy Rich Asians. Okay, tell me a bit more why.
I guess there's a whole number of reasons. For one, I'm not a big rom-com girl.
Okay.
So I was like, maybe I'll just pass on the rom-com. I think I'm also just a contrarian. So it's like everyone was like, "Oh my God, there's so many Asians in this movie. You're gonna love it." And I was like, I don't know, I'll just like watch something else instead. So yeah, I just never got around to it. And then it got to a point where I almost had to like pretend that I'd seen it. Like because there's a lot of Asian people in my life, and they'd all be like, "Oh my God," and then this thing happens. Isn't it so beautiful when? And I'm like, yeah, that's so cool.
You're outing yourself right now to all your friends.
Well, now I finally
I didn't
seen
see
it.
that shit. Yeah.
It took you till 2023 to see this movie.
Yeah, it's it is what it is.
I am entirely of the mindset. There's a lot of times where someone says, "Oh, this movie is really good," and some part of my brain just says, "No, I'm not going to watch this." No,
right.
I was scared.
Too many people like this. No,
I was scared of this film. I was scared that I wasn't going to like it, and that I was going to vocalize my displeasure, and people would be very angry about it.
Right.
I was still very online at that point. And it was super duper like, we're on board with this film, and if you're not on board with this film, it's curtains.
I feel like within the Asian community there were some more nuanced conversations about like,
I wasn't gonna have that conversation online, no.
But I feel you. Like I felt like it was kind of this thing of like, I don't want to see this Asian movie and then not like it and then feel disappointed in Asians.
That was part of it. More so, it was like, I don't want to argue with anyone online about why I don't like the film.
Totally.
And that was like, the discourse around it was essentially just like, this movie rules.
Yeah.
You have this danger that happens sort of around these representation moments where it's like, here's an opportunity. Like this has been made to happen. It's been allowed to happen. And we want to see the success of it. And it's like, if you come at it with your experience with film and your tastes in movies, your opinion on it may actually run counter to what the mainstream is accepted for, or what most people are saying about it. It's like,
that's essentially what I was scared of, knowing me as also a contrarian. I was like, I'm not going to like this, am I? You know what? I'm just not going to watch it. I'm just going to do something else.
It's like, you don't like, I know, Jeff, you're not a big fan of like Marvel movies and stuff like that.
No.
And there have been a handful of Marvel movies that have come out that have been very much representation focused in terms of telling the stories that they're trying to tell, and people have rallied around these films. And in some of these cases, I agree. I think some of these are fantastic and fun movies.
No comment.
In other cases, I look at something and I go, ooh, maybe, but it's not where I'm going to go online and say I have an opinion about this movie.
I just want to be quoted here because I don't spend any time online parsing art. I parse art in person. No motherfucking comment. No motherfucking comment.
Wow, strong.
0 comment, please.
That may have been the most pretentious thing you've ever said. I only parse.
I only parse art in person. I don't parse art.
And yet here we are on Zoom.
Here we are.
Okay, I don't parse good art.
I feel like Crazy Rich Asians there was such high stakes for this film in terms of like the representation piece, because the last one we got with this many Asians on screen was Joy Luck Club, which was a billion years ago. And I felt it seemed like the whole community was like, if people don't like this, we're fucked. Like, we're not going to get another movie for another 30 years.
That's totally fair.
No, it's a dangerous thing because you create these stakes, and it's sort of funny. There is a little bit of overlap in casting between Joy Luck Club and this movie. Interestingly enough, the grandmother appears in both movies.
True.
So that's interesting. But other than outside that fun fact, it's like, like there's a certain idea of what, American audiences per se, or Western audiences would expect from a film. And the idea is like, here's this movie, and there's stakes behind it that go beyond just the success of the film. And if like, are we going to be allowed to keep making movies like this and tell a story that is this way if this one doesn't do well? And interestingly enough, the writer of the book, Kevin Kwan, basically was offered a lot of money by Netflix to do this movie, and turned it down because he was concerned that the budget was so high that if it didn't recoup, or if it didn't do what it was supposed to do, it would have been disastrous. In the end, they made it
did really well, right?
If I remember, yes. Oh, it did fantastic.
Well, yeah. It was like,
it's a $30 million movie.
Yeah.
$30 million movie, and then in like the US and Canada, it made like $175 million. So yeah, it did well. It did well.
They hated it in China, though.
Well,
they
didn't like Rachel Chu in China either. So
that's a very good point. I also feel like the premise of like it's an all Asian cast is just not that shiny in China. They're like, yeah, so what?
They've seen it before. It happens. We're like, how novel here. It's like there's white people in the first like 3 minutes. Look, and they're British and then they're gone.
What they don't understand, the nuance they're not seeing in China is how dumb you have to make a film for boring white people to go to it and embrace it.
Yes.
So true.
Japan understands this about Transformers, where they don't go to an American Transformers film for sense or understanding or even being a movie. They just laugh at our ideas about robots. And that is awesome. And like, that's what I would be doing if I was going to see this film in China. If I was Chinese, I'd be like, I'm not going to this to like feel any deep connection to anything.
Right.
We'll laugh at what Americans think Chinese people do.
There's a certain amount of the criticism of this film from Asian audiences outside of the US that went over my head, because it's like, okay, clearly there are levels on this film that I can't fully grasp. Some things I was able to grasp is there was criticism that Singaporean English wasn't used in this film versus, British or American dialects of English. Like, so like already there's like this criticism coming at it. There's criticism about the casting and criticism about whether or not the film represented the people of Singapore and the diversity of Singapore properly. Like all those things came through. So there was a lot of criticism that comes to it that for a Western audience, many of us are not going to understand, but we are going to understand the music that sounds awful lot like Coldplay's Yellow. We are going to understand that and what that means in a movie. When Coldplay's Yellow plays in a movie, then it's an emotional time. That's the part that's supposed
time to be emotional.
The heart.
Yes,
because they don't just throw Coldplay's Yellow around for anything.
No.
There's other Coldplay songs you throw in everything. This is about the heart.
You have just had your heart broken if Yellow. Like if you hear Yellow in the background somewhere, you need to just, wherever you are, just duck into the corner and hide.
Yeah.
Don't let anyone see you or touch you or be near you. This is a Cabbage's warning. If
immediately put your phone on Do Not
and
Disturb.
You didn't put it on yourself because you're already heartbroken, turn your phone off.
Yeah,
turn it off. Yeah. And then go hide.
It's like The Ring.
It's coming.
7 days.
It's coming.
7 days. Coldplay's Yellow. Just watch. I'm telling you. God, there's so much we can talk about with this movie. There's a lot to say, but I think that we have to tell for the audience exactly why we chose this movie, why we're doing this movie. And that's because of Awkwafina.
Mm-hmm.
Awkwafina, this season we are talking about movies where rappers are in front of the camera, behind the camera, in all sorts of capacities. And we've done a lot of films. And one of the things that I realized in coming into this was, one, that this was a film that I hadn't seen that she's in, and two, realize just how many films I had seen that she is in. The number of times I have seen Raya and the Last Dragon, for example, is which shares some DNA with this movie, which we'll go about a little later. Things like Ocean's 8, all sorts of other films that she's appeared in. And I realized that we had originally started thinking about trying to do something like The Farewell, and we sort of realized that might be too much for our fragile hearts on this show and for our audience.
So not so much to watch, but just to talk about it after. Like watching it is whatever, but talking about it would be.
I also have not watched The Farewell because I feel like it's too close to home.
Fair.
Yeah.
Like I would just have to excuse myself from this episode. I'd be like, I'm sorry, guys, I just can't. It's too much.
But that being said, and I feel the same way in a lot of ways. I thought the rom-com was going to be safe, but because I don't watch rom-coms, and I didn't realize just how much I was going to weep like a little baby throughout this Awkwafina movie.
Yes, I also cried a lot. Yes.
Oh man, am I a monster?
Yes.
Ah, shit.
This is why you're single.
I didn't cry. Oh, there's plenty of reasons why I'm single.
Okay, fair.
Don't drag my emotions into it, because I don't drag them into relationships. So
wait, do I hear Coldplay's Yellow in the distance? What's going on?
It was all yellow.
Great callback.
It'll keep coming back. We will beat that yellow horse.
That joke's got a lot of legs.
That joke is hot to trot.
What were we talking about?
We were talking
about
crazy rich Asians. I was just saying, like, I did not go into a movie with where Awkwafina was going to be in there. I knew she's going to be comic relief. She's going to be fun. She's going to bring to these movies what she brings to other films that I've enjoyed. And suddenly it's like, yes, that's there, but there's so much to this film. What's kind of your experience with Awkwafina, both as a listener to her music as well as her time on screen, both the big screen and the small screen?
Yeah, I mean, I love Awkwafina. I think she's a hero for second gen weird, sarcastic Asian girls.
Okay.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess like I found out about Awkwafina like from the My Vag days.
Sure.
Just, I feel like if you're an Asian woman in rap, like you can't miss another one. You're like, oh my God, you too. So I was, I don't know, but I always felt like she was, no offense to my girl Nora from Queens, but like very much a joke rapper. Like I was never like, oh yeah, like the lyrical prowess here. So I always admired her as an entertainer, and I wrote a master's thesis chapter on green tea that she does with Margaret Cho.
Right.
And like I think she's really brilliant at playing with comedy and shame and, a lot of like very Asian touch points in her entertainment stuff that she does. But honestly, I'm like so happy she's really an actor now. Like, I think this is truly her calling. I think Awkwafina has always been a character. So it's just, it's great to kind of see her in the role I think she's meant to be. And this was kind of like the first big acting role for her, I think.
It was definitely the biggest exposure.
She'd had smaller roles. So she'd been in like in 2016 she had Neighbors 2, and then she had she was a character in
There was a second Neighbors?
Yeah, the second Neighbors, which was a sorority
see
one.
This?
Yeah. No, this Neighbors.
No, you didn't see it. Yeah, right.
So she was in Storks. They made a Storks movie. There was an indie comedy that Netflix did in 2018 that we almost did during Stoner season, Jeff. That's called Dude.
Oh, yeah.
And then she had that same year was Ocean's 8. And then 2018 is also that. So this was the first like really like big role. She'd been in Hollywood kind of, movies, but had not been in something where she would have such a prominent position. Like Nora from Queens didn't start until like 2020. And it's like the Farewell comes after Crazy Rich Asians, as does all this other stuff, like her roles in Angry Birds 2 and Jumanji
Renfield.
And Shang-Chi, and now this year Renfield and The Little Mermaid. Like there's so many different things that she did, but you're right, this was really like the first big role that she had in sort of a big film. I think Neighbors 2 is like, you're on an ensemble cast, there's a bunch of comedians who are all vying for lines and things, like they're cannibalizing each other and basically in some of those sorts of movies. So this was a real standout for her. And she certainly wasn't alone. There's a lot of great comedic talent in this movie. Like the number of comedians in this film, comic actors and otherwise, just like, and she still manages to kind of come out on top, even in scenes with Ken Jeong, which is pretty impressive. Pretty impressive, because Ken Jeong will eat the scenery gladly in any film.
Absolutely.
And did.
Dr. Ken.
Did a great job of it.
I do have to say though, like, there were a couple people I was really disappointed to not see in this movie. Like, I'm obsessed with Bobby Lee, and I'm offended on his part.
Now, your obsession with Bobby Lee, like, does that extend to his podcasts?
Yes, I listen to all of the podcasts every week. I'm like, he's my BFF.
Yeah, I love Bad Friends. Bad Friends I listen to a lot.
Yeah, so if you listen to Bad Friends, you know that he's definitely butthurt about not being in this movie.
Yes.
And I agree. I wish that Margaret Cho had been one of the aunties.
That would have been good.
I think that would have been just so over the top. Like, would have just taken the gossipy aunties to another place. And I've been telling people this fact because I had not seen this movie until this week. I just like a total like misremembrance. Because I guess Keanu Reeves was in Always Be My Maybe, the Ali Wong and I forget his name.
Was now, Randall Park?
Yes, Randall Park rom-com. And he had a quote that said, "I'm just honored that they remembered that I'm Asian." Yeah. And so I keep telling people, like, you know how Keanu Reeves is in Crazy Rich Asians, and then it's so cute that he said, like, "I'm just so grateful they remembered I'm Asian." And no one has ever corrected me.
Never?
Not once. No one's ever been like, "I don't remember seeing
movie.
him in that."
He's not.
And then the whole time I was watching it, I was like, "Where's the famous Keanu cameo?"
Not in
and
there.
Then it never happened. I had to Google it after and be like, "It wasn't this movie." I've just been talking about it so authoritatively.
Other than what this might say about your friend group and how honest or not honest they are with you, and I think you can unpack that later. We don't really have time for that on the show. There is something about the way that rom-coms blur together. And it's like Henry Golding, who this was like his first acting role. He'd been like a TV host and presenter prior to this, his first acting job. Within a year, he does another rom-com. He does that Last Christmas movie. Paul Feig directed it. And so it's like, I feel like if you watch enough of these things, they can sort of blur. So you have some sort of plausible deniability until people listen to this podcast and find out that you only just watched the movie. But up until this point, up until this is released, you have plausible deniability that it's just like, oh, I watched that one too.
Right.
It's all those same things. Yeah. They're romantic comedies. We're not supposed to like differentiate between them. No.
From like 2003 or 4, maybe later, until about 2011, I went to like every rom-com in the theater.
Really?
I loved going
in the
to
theaters.
Rom-coms. Yeah, I would go to the theaters to see these things.
Wow.
And what I loved the most about them was that they were essentially science fiction. That these people lived in a world where these pretty people were like ugly for some reason or undateable or whatever. I avoided the wedding ones a lot because they're even more formulaic.
Right.
But this had a lot of drama for being labeled a rom-com. Rom-coms, the really formulaic ones, the ones I love the most. The drama is like, I don't want to date this person, but we keep getting put in the same room somehow. You know what I mean?
Right. That's Last Christmas. 100%. That's Last Christmas.
Yeah, dude, that's all of them. It's so many of them. Just like, why? I've never seen you before today, and now I have seen you like 5 times. What the hell's going on? It's the universe. This is the sci-fi part. The universe is bringing these people together. In this case, there were real human consequences. This wasn't like they're destined to be together. There were times where I was like, you cannot go back to that situation.
Right.
And be happy. That is like a wild and diabolical level of pain for a rom-com.
Yeah. I also think like the intergenerational like trauma and guilt and kind of hazing that happens adds to the stakes in the sense of like, it's not just like, oh, she's like a westernized Chinese person, so she doesn't fit in because she's like a commoner. It's like, no, she doesn't fit in because like I was told I didn't fit in, and this is like what we do as matriarchs, and like are you willing to like offer the same sacrifices that we did to get into our position? So yeah, it becomes this like very multi-layered thing around like filial piety and like ancestry, you know, like it really is like very deep. I think that's why I cried so much. Like
I think that's where the emotional core lies for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you. It was impressive how that was baked in without it seeming tacked on. You know what I mean?
Think that was one of the most authentically Asian things about this movie. Like it was where there's a lot of kind of like opulence porn and kind of like model minority, like, you know, you get to get one up on the white people because you were like the most rich Asian person in the world, you know, like I think like there's a lot of kind of that kind of stuff and like Orientalist vibe, but when it comes to kind of like the family dynamic stuff and I know some people disagree and they're like, why were all of the older Asian women so mean? But like, I don't know, in my experience, that's pretty accurate. Like there is a lot of kind of like unprocessed, like I went through this, so you have to go through it too kind of stuff that happens.
What got me again is somebody who was inexperienced with rom-coms, but somebody who just watches a lot of movies. I immediately was just like, why doesn't he tell her how rich his family is before they go over there? Shouldn't he know? And I just didn't realize that part of genre tropes is like it has to hinge on these things. It has to hinge on this
you
stuff.
Have to have this. If you're asking why someone is messing up a relationship, then truly you're not in the right place. You need these villainous moves to move this plot. You have to have some villainous moves. Otherwise, it's just making out.
But what I liked was that, like, so I actually, when I set that aside, I had these sort of expectations of just like the villains are gonna be this way. And like when like Amanda shows up and it's the bachelorette party, and like she starts out and it's sort of this like being friendly, but also being kind of cold in that way. And then it really, by a certain point, it's just like, then it's just the attack. And you witness that and you're like, oh, this is just going to escalate. Like, no, this is one aspect of the thing. This is one aspect of the thing. And I think that has to do with the fact that the people who wrote this story, and it's two people who wrote the screenplay, who had to figure out how to balance a few different things. One, the standard beats of a rom-com, and the other, exactly what you were talking about, where we're putting in these cultural elements that are unique to these experiences that should be addressed within this. It's like, yes, you're going to find generations of resistance to this based on experience that's going to happen. Like when like Awkwafina like says filial piety in the film at one point, like I watched it because my second watch I had it with the captions on, and so like I try to make sure I didn't miss a line or miss a beat, because we always try to watch these twice for every one of these episodes. And so my second viewing, I'm seeing that and just like, okay, I have to Google that, so like, but understanding that like somebody had to put that into there, because if they hadn't put it in there, it would not make sense. It would make sense to a certain extent, but like you have to understand there is depth to it. It's just we're just being mean because it's fun to be mean to people.
The bachelorette party to me was a big miss, mostly because of how it was handled immediately after, and then for the rest of the film forgotten.
It was way too heavy-handed.
There was a massacred animal in someone's bed. If that happens to me, we have to figure this out now. I'm not waiting until I get back and saying, your family and I are kind of butting heads. I'm going to go butt heads. You can't just leave dead animals in my bed, dog. This is not how we're going to do business.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like I'm going a million places right now. Okay.
Go.
On one hand, I think there's something very Chinese about like, I don't want to give them the satisfaction of having a reaction. And like the idea that she goes off and just buries this fish and just like doesn't talk to anybody about it and is just like totally like doesn't affect me, like that's almost like the most authentic dynamic of the whole bachelorette party to me, that she would be like, I am so proud,
really,
and I will not let any of these bitches know that they have upset me on any level. Like that was the most Chinese part to me.
They wrote stuff in blood. I don't know, man.
Like,
that seems wild, but it is Hollywood. They're going to
I think
exaggerate.
the fish itself was not Chinese at all. Like that whole thing of like the dead fish and the writing in the blood. First of all, why are you writing in English? Second of all, like, like all of that, all of that stuff was like, oh, this is way too like cartoon and like violent. And like, I don't know. It just felt very like, that was the most inauthentic part. Like her reaction to me seemed very authentic. Like that if something like that were to happen, you would be like, what, like, you think I'm going to be upset about this?
I could see internalizing the stuff of like the things that his mother said to her.
Right.
And then not immediately reporting that because like, this is a stressful family situation and I'm just going to try and like figure this out on my own. I can see that. I don't know, if somebody writes some shit on my wall in blood, I don't know, maybe I'm different. I got to talk to him about it and be like, what's up with the blood on my wall? Like, do we need to talk about something?
I mean,
it was interesting that there was no confrontation at all.
And then we just never heard from those people really again.
We see them when she shows up on
We're just like, oh,
she shows up in the wedding in
they gave up
that dress, and she encounters them on the red carpet. And
right, there's a subtle
and says and says like, you're in my way.
Yes.
Like, that's great. But it's also like that the extreme nature of that particular scene with the fish made me think we were about to see a bunch of, and the word crazy is in the title of this movie. We were about to see some crazy shit. We were about to see some stuff that really was going to be like over the top ridiculousness. And this movie immediately reins it in. It goes back to like, no, now we're going to like, here's the clear, we're going to get back by having the best outfit at the wedding. Here's the montage.
That's very,
here we go. We're walking on sunshine. I'm like, all right, cool. All right, we're here.
We're here. Some of the most subtle shade and revenge of any genre of movie, where like living well is the best revenge, is like a huge rule in a lot of rom-coms.
Dressing well.
It's like, oops, now I have a house with this dude that you wanted, and we live in the same neighborhood, and every now and again I see you and I feel better than you. That is
bold
in there. That's the one. That's how you convey things in rom-coms.
I also think it reminds me a lot of like historical C dramas. Like I watch a lot of like, like Empresses in the Palace, like the concubines fighting over the emperor kind of thing. And like, I would say in contemporary C dramas, you would never see something like a gutted fish as like a message. But when the concubines are fighting amongst themselves, stuff like that happens in the palace all the time. Like all sorts of weird, like, bloody, somewhat mystical, maybe it's a ghost, like I feel like it would have felt more authentic if it had gone more in that like, ooh, maybe it was a ghost that did it kind of vibe, where it was so obviously like the girls just did this mean thing. But yeah, I think again, like the reaction is always like no reaction in those times. It's like you will feel my wrath in a very subtle and painful way later.
Totally.
I will get you banned from the palace.
The hero or heroine of the film must walk through the room with confidence and grace and own a room, and that's the best revenge. Now, realistically, it is not the best of revenge.
No.
But in these films, you have to suspend your disbelief, and it is the greatest revenge of all time. These people now understand your status. You are the most important person. Fuck them. Because this is a very nice dress that you bought.
And so like she wins that moment and then is faced with Eleanor again, which I mean, I don't think I could say enough amazing things about Michelle Yeoh as an actress, period, in this film or otherwise. Just decades of movies that I love watching.
Hits.
No question. And so like she's encounters it and like there's no room in the row. And then she proceeds to sit down next to a princess and talk about microloans to strike up a conversation, and it works because you have to be reminded that this is an economics professor we're watching here. This isn't just some pretty face that he brought over from New York. This is a smart person who can hold very smart conversations with very smart people. And here we go. It's happening. Now, we don't get much of that conversation. In fact, it's actually, if you actually listen to what they're saying to each other, it's just like microloans good because women lift economies. Okay. That's okay. Can we elaborate on that? Is there some data that we want to throw in there?
We don't have time. We don't have time. We're at the like wedding of the century.
Oh yeah. And it's
where someone's about to like float in over a lake of water that no one was warned about. So all their shoes are ruined.
My shoes are ruined.
I would be furious. But I don't have like, $2 billion.
You wouldn't be invited.
I wouldn't be at this wedding. But if I rolled in and my shoes got messed up because this person wanted to like float across like a swan, I'm out.
I'm sure you've been to enough backwoods shotgun weddings, Jeff, in your life as a Southerner. I'm sure
we didn't actually bear the shotguns.
Okay.
And to be fair, Gary, I'm gonna just correct you, and this is a correction for all of people. You don't get invited to a shotgun wedding. A shotgun wedding happens under a shotgun because you fucked up somehow. You don't get to have friends You don't get to have family. You have the dude with the shotgun who also is the witness, a pastor, and possibly parents if you live across the street from them. But there's no such thing as getting invited to a shotgun wedding.
You know what? I've learned something today. I've learned something today. This is really informative. I'm learning a lot. I didn't expect to learn about this culture today. I thought we'd be talking about a different set of cultures.
I just really needed to go. I felt like I needed to set the record straight.
Honestly, this was enlightening. This is an enlightening conversation.
I hate the way the shotgun wedding is used. I'm like, no, it's not that it's in a hurry. It's that someone is pregnant and a parent is like, you are going to stay here legally bound to us and take care of this child. I'm not doing it. That's a shotgun. That's why the shotgun's there.
Wow.
Moving on.
Well, moving on.
Particular Asians, very rich.
Whoa, very rich.
Very rich.
Some of the richest ever.
We are inundated with details about their richness.
Indeed.
Some are like shown, some are granted audience through lies. Some are presented to us like by strangers who just know the story of these people. Like it's an amazing amount of talk and show and tell, if you will, about the richness of these people.
When Awkwafina demonstrates, speaking of show and tell, on a purse, the journey that the young family took
the map on
to get to Singapore.
Just incredible. That was wonderful.
I hadn't realized until my second watch that it was a purse. I was like, I remembered he showed a map.
Oh my God.
I mean, we do smoke weed when we watch these movies, so I will lose details. But like on the rewatch, I go, wait a minute. Wait a minute. This is a purse. It's a purse. You answer the purse.
Such a good moment.
Answer the purse. That's educational. I remember that detail very well.
It was incredible. And honestly, like Awkwafina's family is like the poor family in all of this. You know what I mean? Like it's like they're like the new money rich people that are like, you know, it's like a miracle that she gets invited to their like family gathering.
They are not in the same level of these folks. Like I go to their house, I'm like, they're rich.
They're maybe the top edge of the like. They would believe themselves to be the top edge of the upper middle class. Yeah, not the elite. Definitely. The elite are these people that are throwing a wedding in the sky.
Yes.
It's in the who have bachelor parties in international
people are
waters.
Getting nosebleeds because his wedding is so fucking high up on this castle. It's an insane wedding, truly. And then they just like repurpose the area. They're like, well, we were already partying here before. Let's have another party.
Right.
Just immediately the next day, let's party again. With more,
and the ability to pull parties together so quickly is amazing.
Rich people can throw a party together quick. They own a lot of land.
Living in New York, you sort of get a sense from reading newspapers and from some things that you can see firsthand, just of wealth. And you think about like there's these buildings that like Russian oligarchs have bought floors of, you know, and you just sort of, and there's private clubs that you have to basically be a millionaire even to get into. And like, I mean, it starts to look like a friggin' like it's like a damn Batman movie. Like it's sort of like there's comically, you know, absurd villainy of richness. And as much as my general, you know, desire is to guillotine the rich, I really did enjoy the lavish display of wealth in this movie. I really liked it. I thought it was entertaining. I wanted to eat everything I saw in this movie.
The super rich were living a really fun life. And that's, I think, pretty cool. I mean, isn't that why you do it? Isn't that why you keep it?
I guess.
One would hope.
Do that. Like, that's what you want to do.
But I want to go to the hawker market. I mean, that's just what I want to do anyway. So
right. Okay. We have to talk about the food.
Please.
The food
is so good.
Throughout. Also very authentically Chinese. Like we cannot talk to each other, but we do know how to share food. And this is how we make friends.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The restaurant they go to is phenomenal looking.
Yes.
The outdoor market area.
The night market was I felt like such a sweet touch. Like I thought it was really nice that he somehow arranged for his friends to pick them up so he didn't have to be inundated by his mother. That felt very inaccurate to me, but you know, whatever. Maybe you know, he was like, I don't want to chill with her yet. But I thought it was so sweet and like very indicative of like like a young Chinese person coming home. And it's like this idea of like, yeah, your friends pick you up and the first stop is the night market and you like eat all of the things like that. I know that order was supposed to be like, ooh, look how like he can just get anything he wants and he's friends with all of the vendors, but also like that compulsion to be like, actually, I haven't eaten any of these things properly in like X number of years since I was last home, and I actually need to try every single stall tonight. Like that vibe felt very exciting for me and very much like an experience I've had. So I super appreciated that. And I also loved the like the dumpling scene.
Yeah.
Like I was like, ooh, this is real
cool.
family, you know, like the whole it's like, first of all, like underlying kind of like Henry Golding's character being like, this is how we do it, and like this is how my grandma showed me, like that is such like, wow, he's such a catch vibes. Like it's like as hot as he was for the whole movie, I feel like as a Chinese girl I was just like, oh my god, like wow, what husband material, like just like couldn't get enough of that. And then that last dig where the grandma is like looking at the mom's dumplings being like, oh, like not very good. Like that was like, oh, that is like the deepest shade that like happens all the time in all Chinese films. Like that's how you cut to the heart.
A beautiful moment that wasn't given wild gravity or music or anything. It was just like makes the comment and it starts their sort of cutting dialogue. Like that's the first time grandma is shown as being a cutter. You know what I mean? And that being the intro, because this is something they sit down and do every day. Everyone in that room is perfectly passable at making these things. Like there's no reason anyone should be told their dumplings are bad. They do it every day.
Yeah.
That's
absolutely
it's totally fucked up.
Well,
it is a wild thing to do to someone.
Expecting that Rachel was the one that was going to get flack. Like the mom would be like, oh, like you don't know how to do it, you know? And so it was like this very kind of like nice surprising twist that it was like, oh no, like that was the moment where I was like, okay, I see this all coming together. Like this is so real. It's so intergenerational. Like,
and it's sold. So like all these little things we expected to happen to the main character kind of didn't. You know what I'm saying? Like there were subtle moments and maybe a couple of not so subtle moments, but generally there was a lot of interplay between a lot of different people. You know what I'm saying? Instead of just this one character experiencing all these people. And I thought it totally sold the ending where they had hired the private investigator and were like the true heel turn at the end.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like that. Now we're going in the end of the second act is thus. These people are actually crazy.
Right.
And rich.
And Asian.
Because they did it in an absolutely beautiful garden outside of their palatial estate.
It was beautiful.
It was an incredible scene, beautifully shot. There's some incredible moments in this movie.
I think my favorite scene that doesn't have Awkwafina, that's just that she's not in, is the mahjong parlor. That moved me on the second one in ways, even knowing it was coming, and just sort of making the connection that like the poker scene we watched at the very beginning gets routed out in the end. Like it's like her understanding of game theory, whatever that is.
There's a thing too where the younger generation of people can both handle what's in front of them and speak on it. And they're not internalizing it. And this is like, I'm here to let you know that this conflict may end, but not because I like don't, not because I'm running away.
Right.
I'm better than you people. I'm better.
I just wanted you to know that one day when he marries another lucky girl who is enough for you, and you're playing with your grandkids and the tanhuas are blooming and the birds are chirping, that it was because of me, a poor, raised by a single mother, immigrant, nobody.
I'm better.
What the fuck?
I'm better than you.
Okay, but the subtleties of the gameplay.
Ooh,
so it's like in the poker scene.
She's handling this person. Like I know exactly how this person's going to do everything.
It's crazy.
I'm playing.
So, like in the poker scene at the beginning, she's like talking to that, I don't know, student
or TA. It was a TA.
Yeah, TA. And was like, your problem is that you're like playing because you're trying to win. And I can kind of see through the psychology of that, right? So it's like that kind of echoes into the scene too. But what's so beautiful about the unfolding of it all is this idea that like she throws away the winning piece, knowing that that's also like the one piece that, like it was just like, wow. And then like flipping the tiles, being like, I let you win, bitch. Haha. Like, I just like, it was so juicy. And mahjong is like it's like a heated thing, like it's like
like spades or like there's card uno. There's things that you do together that you're meant specifically to talk shit to people.
Absolutely.
You are supposed to be telling them that they are losing when they are losing, and you are supposed to be threatening them when you are losing.
It's like it is the one place where you are allowed to have very loud, aggressive conflict as a family. Like,
that's why so many gunfights start at card games.
All of the generational, like the filial piety goes out the window at the mahjong table. Like it's like this is the one space where it's allowed, and the most insane things happen. Like this is the only time anyone on the Chinese side of my family has ever experienced or inflicted violence toward other family members. Like
totally,
it's so crazy. So I loved that. Also, it was kind of like the cut was very deep, but it was like pretty subtle too. Like it wasn't an explosive mahjong fight, which it also would have been very authentic.
The stare at the very end, the power move of that, where she walks away from the table and goes over and taps her mother, who then just turns back and gives this look. I can't even describe this look. That
no, you can't.
Her.
I mean,
but it was just like it felt like it was like if this was a superhero movie, like it just tore through her. Like she was just destroyed in that scene by that in that moment, that final just like ridiculously like brutal shot. And I can't describe what that look was, but it was just like perfect. It was perfect. Then we go back to pure rom-com mode, and now we're on a plane somehow trying to save the marriage.
This brings me to a question that I have.
Okay.
I know that we enjoyed the film more so, and again, there's a really hard curve for me and Gary because we're not really used to enjoying the films we watched.
We watch
some really bad films, and we make it very fun. I don't mind doing it. I'm not like complaining per se.
Oh, good. I'm glad you're not
in this particular movie. I think I was wowed by the fact that it wasn't terrible enough to think it was good. But there is some like he just runs onto a plane and she's like, all right, you ran onto the plane. That's the reasoning I'm in. Even though she made this big show and was like, I'm out. Fuck you, motherfuckers. I'm better than you. I don't need your
money. It's the emerald.
The emerald, does the emerald have power? What is the emerald?
Yes, the emerald.
Well, it's the acknowledgement that the family accepts her now. Like that's like they really conceded in that moment.
Concede is, I mean, look, I know we're in rom-com land and it's fine. I know that it's fine. But I was just like, a symbol? No, I need like a fucking formal apology on television. This shit needs to I need the proceeds to go to charity for people who tune in.
No, because the final scenes when they tell you that you cut from the airplane, yes, I will marry you. The woman behind her saying yes
to a second lavish party a day later.
I don't even know if it was a day later. I don't know how much time passed, but it was a party.
Yeah, time in this movie is weird. It seems like it happens over months, but it's like 4 days.
It's like a couple days. It's
it's like basically 4 or 5 days.
Like I don't know how long she's sitting at the house depressed, and maybe add some additional days to that.
And there's a lot of weird cutting issues.
This movie is no more than a week's worth of time,
right?
Realistically, I used to account for her mother being flown over.
Well, it's like a 14-hour flight.
I've done
some time to get there.
I've flown to Asia enough times to know it's not like that. It's going to take you some time, and you got to find. I mean, he's rich enough that he can pay for the direct flight as opposed to having to do a connection and all that I have to do. So respect to him. But that last scene, at this party, and she sees Michelle Yeoh across the room. I'm not crazy rich. I'm sorry. I already said this earlier. There's no such thing as crazy rich Cubans. We had one. He's Scarface, and he's dead.
I'm straight up like, your boy is not rich.
Not rich.
I am not rich.
Sorry, everybody.
Insider
Jeffrey Loughlin.
I know all of our we all thought I was a dashing fly-by-night millionaire, but nope.
Wow. So many reveals on this episode.
Podcasting is not paying the bills,
it's not paying the bills.
Not paying the bills.
What we do for love. Crazy rich Asians.
On that note, subscribe to the Patreon.
Subscribe. See, people get it.
People get it.
We need it.
But I want to point out that like there is not a full reconciliation at the end of this film. Is they see each other, Rachel and Eleanor see each other across the room at this party, and Eleanor acknowledges her from across the room, and then leaves the frame because the story is not done. This is not resolved.
That's all you'll ever get from a Chinese mom. That's like as close to like, I love you, I accept you as my daughter-in-law.
I assumed like, that was possible. Thus, because truly, like, another instance where I know we're in movie land and it's fine. But if you hire a private investigator to investigate me, we have more to talk about than a wink and a nod, Big Cat. We need to like,
God, you are so sensitive. Fish in the bed, a private investigator. It's like, man.
And spelling things in blood. Don't forget about the spelling things in blood thing is where I think
you get so hung up on this stuff. It's like, that's why I've been married twice. And you, sir, are sitting there worrying about private investigators.
I don't know who.
It's not a deal breaker. It's not a deal breaker. It's not a deal breaker.
It's just saying. It's not a deal breaker to hire. All right, cool. I'm going to start hiring some private investigators. Make sure everybody's on the up and up.
That's and
then just telling them.
That scene ends, and it's just fireworks, and it's gorgeous, and you're just seeing the grandiose.
One more time, we have to hammer it home. These particular Asians are fucking crazy rich.
Crazy rich.
They had another round of fireworks ready to go for the next party already. Somebody came in and was like,
fireworks.
Oh, I'm just going to like reset all the fireworks from last night, just in case you guys want to.
They also have a rare Cambodian gong that they used once.
That's true. They did.
Indeed.
Once. Once. And really just for comic effect more than anything else. It didn't even warrant anything else. It didn't actually prompt anyone to go look at the flower. It didn't signify anyone's arrival. They just hit it once. That was it.
Shout outs to all of the South Asian representation in this movie.
Yes.
I was kind of pumped
by way of gong.
I was kind of pumped when they did that. It was very like, you know how the Transformers movies will just bring in Transformers and immediately destroy them so that they'll like sell things.
Don't watch those.
This is sort of that. They were like, I don't understand. I don't think you quite understand how crazy rich they are. This one just bought some earrings for $1.4 million and hid them.
That was just at
the
cost.
Other one,
it's just at cost.
It was at cost. Just the dude had to tell us they were at cost at $1.4 million. Please understand how crazy rich these people were. Please. And then this moment that I love to death, that they went and described this thing, then immediately used it and were like, that's it. We just needed you to understand how rich they are again. I love it so much.
Imagine if Margaret Cho got to be the aunt to hit the gong. I feel like this was such a missed opportunity. Margaret Cho should have been in this movie.
I'm with you.
I don't disagree. I think there's some absent faces. I think there were a few folks who could have been in this. I think there's like Awkwafina did not bring any of her friends from Queens. The Bo and Yang is robbed of an opportunity. That being said, Cousin Oliver to me is an absolute joy in this film. I enjoy him I haven't watched like all of Superstore, but I enjoyed him on Superstore. And he has so many amazing lines in this movie. And just a wonderful part. I wanted to see an entire film of Awkwafina and Cousin Oliver. If you can if we could spin that off,
Absolutely.
Like if the Fast and Furious movies can have a Hobbs and Shaw, surely Crazy Rich Asians could have
Fakelin and Oliver. Yeah,
Fakelin and Oliver should have their own movie.
I would watch that. 100%.
Or I want a different cut of this movie that focuses on what we don't see them do.
Like just the two of them at the party that first night. Like
that could be the whole movie. She goes upstairs to change. I want to see her just exploring the upstairs of this building before she even gets around to changing. I want to see that. Then after they meet at the bar, and now Cousin Oliver's in play, because like we get them later with the whole like clothing montage. Like, no, I could just watch the party from their perspective and be just fine with that.
And also like their blossoming new like BFFdom, like
oh my god, yes.
Oh, immediately too. Yes.
Yeah,
I think they should be the next, like they should reboot Harold and Kumar with them.
I love it.
That would be dope.
That would be phenomenal.
That would be amazing. I mean, I'll take any sequel to this movie at this point. I mean, there's 2 more books.
So you want another one?
I want part 2. There were little bits of information in this film that were left out that definitely suggested they were hinting at, hey, we'll make more of these guys.
The money was there. I mean, like it made a shit ton of money. Mm-hmm. The fact that they showed a lavish world for just $30 million is pretty incredible.
Yeah. But like Constance Wu got screwed over by ABC and the Fresh Off the Boat producers, who were about to cancel the show and then decided to bring it back, kind of derailing things. I mean, she's written a whole memoir. I don't need to go too deep into it, but the reality is she had a real momentum that got stalled by network television saying, we're going to suck one more season out of you.
Right.
But like, there's definitely a desire for it. There's 2 more books to work with. But like one of those little details was the idea of like the truth about her father.
Right.
We never find out in the movie who he is, or we hear that, or who the husband was either. Mm-hmm. But clearly he's somebody who might have had some level of power, perhaps, because of how she describes him. Like she was worried that he would find her, so we don't know that. However, my understanding, having listened to other people who have read the sequels, like these are bits of information that you find out about later. You find out who her actual father is, and you might not be surprised. He's rich.
No.
Yeah. So she's a rich Asian, didn't even know it.
Wow.
So we're learning. We will learn more if they ever do sequels, and it depends on how closely they adhere to the books. But I mean, I want more. I'll just be honest. I want more. I want more Awkwafina. I want more of this.
I do not care about Rachel and Nick. I have to say, okay. Of all of the characters in the whole movie, I was like, thank you for driving this forward so I can meet all of these other fun people. Mm-hmm. And like, I desperately want more Awkwafina. Like, I feel like the Paislin and Oliver vibe is like, I was just like, please, more of this. I would like to see more of Astrid. I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Like, I want to know like what happens with her now, and like, does she get with that guy at the end? And like
in the mid-credits scene, that was like that's another setup for a sequel. Like, yes.
I would love. It's like Amma is very interesting to me, like the grandmother character, and like how that like works with Eleanor in terms of like will they work it out? But it's like to me, it's like Rachel and Nick were just like a device for like all of these other. It's like, where's the sequel where it's like Paislin and Oliver and like the aunties go on vacation, like they go to America? That's the sequel I want. Like Paislin, Oliver, and the aunties in America.
My big fat Chinese American wedding.
It's like our family tour bus across America.
There we go. I also, from my understanding, is that Gemma Chan's character Astrid would have, her story was definitely part of the books in terms of what happened next. So I think that is something that would be provided in there. Again, it's like the focus is again around.
Well, I mean, if not, then that was
a
weird B story to just be like, by the way, this is the background on this whole thing.
Yeah,
we're not coming back to it. If I had known more about this going in, I would have focused more on that. But I watched it twice and was both times like, oh, right. Anytime they came on the screen and were squabbling or something, I'd be like, oh, right. They're in this.
Unhappy.
It's not working.
They're rich and unhappy.
Yeah, they're like also rich, but like they don't, it doesn't look good. All right, cool. Now we're back to like the main story where people I care about are doing things.
Yeah.
It didn't register with me at all. And then at the end, they were like, oh, by the way, people think she's hot. Yeah, dude, we all think she's hot. All of us.
I just really liked Astrid as a character. Like I felt like I like enjoyed her a lot. So it's like I was naturally very much rooting.
I would love it. I would love it if there was more weight to this. But what it was remember that guy you met earlier? Kind of a jerk. That's the B story.
Not great.
Much, yeah.
Wrapped it up.
Yeah.
I guess there's the parallel with like him being like not wealthy and how he like feels in the family dynamic, and it's like this kind of foreboding, like.
But the tables, if Gary's correct, the tables would turn.
Yes.
And now all of a sudden their money wouldn't be important to her.
Well, yeah.
We may know, we may never know. It's hard to say. I'm just going to admit that, like, because I am not somebody who watches rom-coms, like I just became a sucker to particularly on my second viewing, to just the rhythms of a rom-com. I stopped thinking actively about it.
Good for you.
Like, yeah,
that's
man,
what it's there for.
Yeah, man. That this love. Oh, and like I'm crying. Great.
You find yourself after a little bit like, he's lying.
It's like
red flag, girl, red flag. Like it's you gotta let go.
You must understand the way that we dissect truly terrible movies on this show.
Yeah.
And really go into like really just deeply into films that deserve no examination. Like that, I watched this and it felt like this warm bath I got to sit in. And I made sure that I ordered some good Chinese food before, because I was ready to see a lot of food and get that real experience. And I mean, my view is there wasn't enough food in the damn movie, but that's my opinion.
There could have been more food. Yeah,
I think there were more opportunities for people to eat, and we could have seen more things.
Yes,
but I'll hopefully on this they'll take that note for the sequel.
Okay, I want to ask one question before we leave. I know we're run afoul of time, but her drinking from trying to drink from the finger bowl was like, what did you think you were going to be drinking? That's like, do you think that's a shot that anytime you walk into a rich person's house, they drinking a bathtub of alcohol, or what's going on? What was that? I just didn't understand that scene at all. That's all. I just wanted to throw that out.
That was a great detail, Jeff, that I'm glad you picked up on. I totally forgot about that, but it was ridiculous.
It must be a custom in Singapore to drink my weight in alcohol before I like walk into a room.
Maybe she thought it was like bone broth. I don't know.
Of course.
The size of the bowl does not, for me, as somebody who has gone to so many events that have passed appetizers and just reached in over it, like if I see a bowl, I go, that's for like dipping or something. The
to
dipping
its credit, it was supposed to be goofy and laughable, and it was. I laughed really.
It was
at the fact that she tried to drink a pound of alcohol bowl. Anywho. Thanks for coming.
So is there a question?
Yeah, you just wanted to bring it up. I really needed to just get that out there. It bothered me so much for some reason, but I also laughed. Okay. Yeah, no, thank you for being here. We're doing this.
Thanks for being on the show.
My utmost pleasure.
He just wanted to have that.
I needed it.
Yeah.
Me.
Thank you. Gary, what are we going to watch next? I'm pumped. There's been a couple of real okay ass to good movies in this mix. And I'm starting to get a little spoiled on like talking about good stuff. That movie wasn't bad.
Okay. You know what? I don't know what to do. Like we have a rhythm to this show. The same way that rom-coms have rhythms. There's a rhythm to this show. We start off and we're like, we're about to talk about a bad movie. And then we talk at length about a bad movie.
Right.
And then.
But I think this is proving that we can also talk about and make fun of and have a good time with a good movie too.
But is that a show?
I'm not saying we're getting. Well, I don't know.
Is that a show? Is that why people listen to this thing? Do they listen to this thing because
we got to figure it out?
Like I thought the understanding was of this is like the contract that we have with our listeners. And I mean this in a virtual sense. There's no actual contract. We owe you people fucking nothing. But in all seriousness, the contract that we have is that we're going to talk about a thing that is ridiculous and absurd. And as much as this film was crazy rich Asians, it was also
nobody signed this social contract.
No, it's a broad rom-com. And regardless of casting and the clear cultural elements are in there, I would call
it a drom-com. There's a lot of drama.
I think rom-com is fine. It's romance over drama.
Oh yeah, you think so?
Yeah, I think so. I do.
What a shock!
And that's the thing. Is like this is the conversation that we're having. How is this what they want? Is this what they want? Or they? I
don't know. They don't tell us much. They don't. We need them to rate and subscribe and tell us what's going on.
I need a lot more 5 stars reviews. I need a lot more reviews with those 5 stars in there. I need a lot more reviews that just say like, we like when you do this. Like, I want to hear what you guys do. Cause like, I don't know. Cause to me, like my gut's telling me to like course correct.
Do you remember? I mean, we had this wonderful conversation about food.
Yeah.
In this one, which I don't think we'd ever really had before, because
most movies we watch
bad movies don't really like focus on like human life. They just focus on wackiness and stupid.
Have you wanted to eat anything in any movie we've watched before this?
You flexed really hard on us on this episode when you said you ordered Chinese food for the second viewing of this movie. And now I wish I could go back in time. I really do. And like get some Chinese food. And my favorite accoutrement with Chinese food, Coca-Cola, cool as ice.
Oh,
there is the answer to our questions, my man. You want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Cool as ice.
Cool as ice.
We'll need the right guest.
We do need the right. Maybe we should put it off.
Yeah, maybe we should hold off on Cool as Ice.
Maybe it'll be next. Who knows?
Well, we find the right guest.
We find the right guest.
It does feel right to me. Cool as ice?
Cool as ice.
It's the Cabbages Podcast Network.